My name is Stuart Kelly and I'm the Chair of the Planning Committee. This meeting will be webcast and a record retained on the Council website. For people at home viewing the webcast, if you look above the meeting, you will see a Resources tab. Select this and a link to the agenda will appear on the right-hand side. This will enable you to open the agenda reports as PDF. My role is to ensure that the meeting runs smoothly, having regard to procedure, behaviour and ethics. To explain who are with us: the planning officers, a highway engineer and an environmental health officer. They will present the applications and provide any technical advice that may be required. The council solicitor, who will give advice on any procedural or legal matters that may arise. There is also the clerk and IT support. The elected members will consider the applications and collectively make the decisions. Voting will be by show of hands. Each application will be introduced firstly by the planning officers. Where there is a qualifying objection, which can either be a petition of over 25 signatures or over 15 letters of objection, I will invite their representative to address us for 5 minutes. I will then invite the applicant or their agent to address us for 5 minutes. Statutory consultees, local consultees and ward councillors may also address the committee. Once all representations have been made and following any questions of clarification from members, speakers may not participate in any debate that follows within the committee. The application will then be open to debate and discussion by members, and we will then make a decision on the applications. When making decisions, members must have regard for the provisions of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act, which requires decision makers to only have regard to material planning considerations. Members must also have regard to local planning policies and to the National Planning Policy Framework and Guidance. The National Framework makes a presumption in favour of sustainable development and requires approval of development proposals that accord with an up-to-date development plan without delay, unless the adverse impacts of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits when assessed against the policies in the National Framework taken as a whole. It will be a matter for each member individually to balance any material considerations and to decide what weight to give them. Members must not predetermine any matter which comes to committee for decision. However, it is permissible for members to be predisposed towards a particular outcome with regards to an application, provided they don't make up their minds on how to vote before formally considering the application details, listening to the presentations and the debate. Members must have listened to the debate and considered all the facts before deciding whether or not to move any motion. If a member is minded to put forward a motion, it is also good practice to first seek advice from officers on the wording of such motion. Members are reminded to use their microphones when speaking. We'll follow the agenda in order. So agenda item 1 is to approve the accuracy of the minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of April 2021. I'll move those minutes. Thanks. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 2, minutes of the Strategic Applications Subcommittee. To approve the accuracy of the minutes of the Strategic Applications Subcommittee that was held on the 29th of April 2021. I would move those minutes. So those agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 3, Members' Code of Conduct, Declarations of Interest. Members of the committee are asked whether they have any personal or prejudicial interests in connection with any application on the agenda, and if so, to declare them and state the nature of the interest.
Chair, if I may, item number 5. I've conversed with the solicitor this evening, and due to the fact that I did a building survey on this property and the client is the applicant, there's no pecuniary interest, but there is perhaps a perception of predetermination, so I'll remove myself from the meeting if that's okay.
Okay, thanks for that, Andrew. Any other declarations? No, thank you. Agenda item 4, which is Burtons Foods, PASTURE ROAD, Moreton, construction of 2 dwelling houses. The matter was before us because it had been removed from delegation by a councillor. The council has now withdrawn their objection, and so this item will return to delegation. That's just for noting, I think. Steve?
Yes, Chair, just to clarify, if you look at the wording of the reasons for calling in the application, it seeks reassurance, and I'm assured by at least one of the ward councillors that that assurance has been received. So it's not that they're wasting committee's time, but it was to seek assurance, and that's been given. Thank you.
That's fine. So we appreciate some of this information comes quite late in the day and agendas have to be prepared. Yeah, so committee just needs to agree to withdraw that item. Is that agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 5 then, at 20 Beacon Drive, Newton, erection of 2-storey extensions, etc. Can I ask the Planning Officer to introduce this item, please?
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair. Could I have slide number 4, please? Thank you. This application has been taken out of delegation by Councillor Johnson, and there are 20 individual representations expressing objections to this proposal. These objections can be summarised as loss of street tree and verge, contrary to policy in relation to the extensions, loss of light to neighbouring property, highway safety implications, reduced street parking, dormers are out of character, increase in overlooking from rear balconies, no rebuilding of the wall shown on the plan, set a precedent for the removal of the front wall. The application site comprises of a detached dwelling house which is located in a designated primary residential area. Could I have slide 5, please? Thank you. The street is characterised by detached properties of different styles and characters with grass verges and street trees. The current access is shown on that drawing. Slide 6, please. This slide shows the original proposal as submitted, which comprised of a 2-storey extension to the front, side and rear of the property, extensions to the existing front dormers and provision of an additional dormer to the front of the house. It also included the construction of 2 balconies to the rear and alterations to the existing access. Could I have slide 7, please? In relation to the proposed access arrangements, the scheme has been amended to provide a reduction in the size of the access. This will limit the extent the vehicular access cuts into the grass verge, or will it require the relocation of the street tree? In this instance, the concerns raised by residents are considered to have been addressed in relation to the impact in the character of the area. In addition, the visibility displays remain unfettered. On-street parking will remain as existing, and there are no objections from our highway engineers, and therefore it's considered that this proposal will now have no impact on highway safety. Could I have slide 8, please? In relation to the alterations to the front dormer and the construction of a 2-storey extension to the side, the scheme has also been modified to reduce the width of the dormers. These are still larger than those within the vicinity of the property, but compliant in terms of advice contained in SPG 11. The 2-storey extension to the front has been amended to reflect the projections on properties surrounding this house. In addition, a single-storey porch is also proposed. In relation to the 2-storey side extension, this will be constructed close up to the boundary with number 18 and doesn't observe a lower ridge height that's set out to be compliant in SPG 11. However, it was considered that a reduction in the height of the ridge would impact negatively on the design of the extension, and in addition, the street has a gradient, and the ridge height of the adjacent property, differs. For these reasons, and the difference in design of these 2 properties, it's not considered that the proposal will create a terracing effect. The proposed single-storey rear extension is compliant with the advice contained in the SPG because it projects no further than, well, just over 3 metres. Could I have slide 7, please? With regards to the impact on neighbouring properties, the proposed rear dormers are contained within feature gables. Both dormers contain opening doors with a small terrace. In addition to this, contained within the terrace is an enclosed guardrail to define the permitted balcony space. From this perspective, this element of the proposal is considered to be acceptable. The majority of the concerns raised related to the originally proposed access arrangements, and these have now been addressed. For these reasons, the proposal is recommended for approval, subject to the attached conditions.
Okay, thanks for that. I don't think we have an objector registered, and I don't think we have an applicant for this one to speak to us. But I do see in place the ward councillor, duly masked, from us. Councillor Johnson, would you like to address the committee?
Yeah, I've got some documentation as well. Shall I give that to you, Chair? Is that okay?
What was that?
Okay, there are copies available then for people to see if they wish to. I've got 2 copies here if people would like to see. Yeah.
I don't think. I don't think I can quite hear what you're telling me.
No, I'm sorry. I was going to walk over and give them to you, which is why I was wearing.
To give us?
So it's just referring to the numbers. So I'm going to talk about 7 different points, and they're marked on the actual individual plan itself to make life easier for anyone to see. That's all. So I have those plans in front of me here with the numbers on.
I have no objection particularly to receiving a handout, so long as officers are able to see it.
I've got 2 copies though.
If it's in relation to sort of explaining points, it's fine, apart from all members won't have it. So
I see. Do you have sufficient copies for all members? Or?
I have.
I mean, what we might be able to do, Chair, to make it easier, is if perhaps Councillor Johnson explains, we can point to it on the slide as we go through. Which
I've got 4 copies of the actual documentation with the numbers on, and I'm going to be talking and relating to these particular numbers. So.
Well, perhaps if you could gave one to Joanne's story, Joanne can actually point to it on the relevant slide, and then that would make it clear.
That'd be really helpful. Thank you. Yeah.
So,
Yes, of course.
okay. Okay.
Well, first of all, thank you, Chair, for enabling me to speak. And I want to thank the planning officers for the work they've done to make the revisions on the documentation, and the street scene in particular we recognise is very much improved as a result of the drawings being resubmitted. There were 20 objections, as we've heard there, and I really want to suggest that some of the original questions and indeed residual information I've been suggested to me still are outstanding, which I would like us to have a look at, please. So I'm going to talk these through in terms of numbers. It's relation of HS11, House Extensions Policy, particularly looking at the scale of the extension and whether that's appropriate to the size of the plot and whether it does indeed dominate the existing building to the extent that it's unneighbourly, particularly with regard to light and the outlook from the neighbours' inhabitable rooms. I'm also speaking to 6.57, with house extension should be designed in such a way as to have no significant adverse effect on the appearance of the original property, the amenities of the neighbouring property, particularly through overlooking or an adverse effect in the area in general. So those are the 2 points in particular I'm referring to, and I'm looking at 7 individual pieces relating to the plans themselves, if I may. Thank you. So number 1, the wall at the first floor is type WT5 and is shown incorrectly as an existing wall in this location. It is in fact a new wall at first floor at the boundary, and therefore it will be impossible to build properly at this location without consent to go onto next door's land. So that's point 1. And again, I've got these points and I'll gladly provide them to you if you want to read them again. Point 2, could we ask therefore that this wall moves over and reuses the existing ground floor garage wall to leave some separation between the houses to avoid a terraced effect. Now, I do know with COVID that we've not had a site visit, as I understand it, and therefore residents haven't necessarily been able to express themselves they normally would. But that's one particular angle. The front building lines are similar, and the new first floor side extension would benefit from getting a metre setback as required normally for semi-detached homes. This is a road of detached houses, and the proximity is of concern. Number 3, thank you, Joe. The balcony will allow residents to lean over the balcony railing and look directly into the adjacent property, right up to their back walls, which we deem to be an unacceptable level of privacy minimum standards. Number 4. Thank you. This balcony is even more severe as the railings are indicated right on the external wall line, and total invasion of privacy will allow this. Number 5. Thank you. The dormer's been lowered, which is welcomed, but the width is still too wide and not in keeping with the more slender construction of the other front dormers facing the road onto Beacon Drive. There's a large expanse of vertical tile hanging to the front of these dormer roofs, but with very little window area. And the fact it will look out of place in conjunction with the phrase I've just looked at there. Number 6. Thank you. The dormer at location 6 has been copied over from location 5 and will be the same massive bulk of dormer construction, which is of concern. And finally, number 7. The proposed rear elevation doesn't match the proposed plan, as there seems to be a single door indicated on the elevations. So, as I say, we're very pleased indeed that there has been a revision and a vast improvement to what was suggested originally, but we're still concerned about some of the residual issues relating to this build. So those are the 7 clear points, thank you, that I'd like us to consider.
Thanks for that. Do any members have any questions of clarification for the ward councillor? Anything? No. Excellent. Councillor Johnson, thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, I think we're open to questions or comments. Can we just confirm, possibly first, that the dormers do comply with the requirements of our policy, and that the issue of overlooking has been addressed?
The front dormers comply with policy in terms of their size and position, insofar as they're set in from the side elevations and set back from the front wall of the dwelling house. In terms of the rear dormers, I think I mentioned in my presentation that one of the dormers is completely enclosed and has a guardrail in front of it, so you can't look out either side. The second dormer to the west, there's a slight area where you can step it, which is about 0.5 metres. So there is a possibility of getting a view, but it's towards the garden house rather than towards next door, is my understanding of the drawings.
Any comments from members then? Harry?
Yeah. Firstly, while it's good that the verge and the tree have been saved, it's disappointing to see more garden grabbing for car parking spaces at a time as a council when we are trying to encourage biodiversity via the likes of No Mow May. Secondly, we've talked a bit about HS 11, but could you specifically clarify what aspects of the proposal are against HS 11 and the supplementary planning guidance associated with it? Thank you.
Thank you. Is that in relation to the dormers?
Well, it just says that It's 3.7.9 that says that parts of the development are against HS11.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair. Yes, you're right. The SPG and Planning Policy H11 house extensions does ask for setback from the front elevation and a low ridge height to prohibit the impact of terracing and to reduce the impact of an extension so it appears dominant rather than overbearing. But I think the case officer felt in this instance that the design of the property was such that to reduce the ridge height would have a detrimental impact on the design, and plus the fact the roads at a gradient, so the ridge heights differ anyway, and plus the fact the two properties either side differ in their design, so it wouldn't have a terracing impact.
And I'll just mention, in terms of the car parking, whilst we might find it objectionable, my understanding is that they would be able to do that with or without our permission, because it's there are permitted development rights for, and it's porous, we understand as well.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I did visit the site, and there are certain features around the road which I think would mitigate or allow this application to be passed without any clear demonstrable harm to residents and surrounding street scene. You did mention in the presentation there's quite a steep gradient on the road as you go up. There's also quite a rise from street level to the properties themselves. They actually go up to sort of raised above the pavement if you haven't been there. And I looked around a number of properties in the road, and there are lots of different designs, and I'm sure there's lots of dormers been put in that aren't exactly 100% perfect. So my view is that, and I'm glad to hear that the ward councillor doing her job on behalf of the residents has gained some concessions, or many concessions, and actually said in a statement pleased that of certain aspects. So it appears to me that there has been a dialogue, there has been a willingness for the developer to mitigate any circumstances, and I think the planning officers probably got the judgment right on this, and I believe I would, at this point in time, if no one else is speaking, would be inclined to go for approval unless I hear any other evidence contrary.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, again, I was heartened to hear the ward councillor accept that. I think her words was where it's a vast improvement on the original plans. So I think it is helpful, and it does show that sometimes when a dialogue does take place before the meeting, that progress can be made. From the objections that she raised this evening, I'm not clear in my mind whether any of those objections on their own would give this planning committee enough ammunition, if you like, to reject the application. I'm really not clear that any of those objections would carry that much weight. So certainly on balance at the moment, even though, as I say, I'm pleased that we've made a lot of progress, I can't see any alternative for this committee other than to approve the application as it now stands. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, yeah, I think the only other issue which we haven't addressed is this business of the balcony and the guardrail. I don't think I'm persuaded that if one has a balcony to go out on, that you're going to spend your time leaning over in order to look into next door's garden. In any event, if we were to attempt to send it back to remove the balcony, then windows would replace them, and the same glimpses would no doubt occur. In the urban area, there will be glimpses into neighbouring properties, and the fact that the balconies are baffled the way that they are gives me no concern, frankly, that there will be overlooking. I've heard what's been said about HS11. Yes, it's not strictly in line with it in terms of the ridge height, but I'm persuaded that the difference in gradient of the road would actually make a change of ridge height on the application property look iniquitous. Is that the word? On its own. So it would look odd if the ridge height were lowered for the extension, I think is the point. So we've listened, I think, to the objections, but I'm not persuaded, like Brian, I'm not persuaded that they're harmful, sufficiently harmful in their own right. So having said that, then I'll move approval. I don't know if anybody wants to second that at this point. Okay, seconded. Is there anybody? Any further? No. In which case we will vote on that. Vote will be by show of hands, and it will be for or against or abstaining on the motion to approve. I'm not going to say the solicitor will call your name, but it isn't. It's back to good old show of hands. Okay, can I see those in favour of approval, please?
Well, that's unanimous, Chair.
That's unanimous. That application has been approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Move on then, please, to agenda item 6, which is the site at 1 Oldfield Drive, Heswall, demolition of existing building and development of a 3-storey apartment. If the plan officer could introduce this application, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair. Could I have slide number 9, please? This application has been referred to the Planning Committee as there are 41 objections to the proposal. These objections can be summarised as unsustainable development, impact on highway safety, detrimental to the character of the area and overlooking. The application site is located at the junction of Telegraph Road and Oldfield Drive. The site currently contains a detached dormer bungalow and the area is characterised by a mix of styles and types of dwelling. Could I have slide number 10, please? This application is for the erection of a 3-storey apartment block containing 5 units following the demolition of the existing bungalow. Planning permission was granted on this site for a 2.5-storey apartment block, 5 units in 2019. This permission remains extant and can be developed out in the next 2 years. In terms of changes to the footprint, these can be seen here. The pink dashed line denotes the approximate footprint of the previous approval and the dark line this current proposal. The changes briefly comprise of an increase in the dimensions of the main footprint of the building from 15.2 metres to 18.2 metres and an increase in the ridge height from 8.7 metres to 9.3 metres. There was initially a proposed garage, but that's been deleted from the scheme now through amended drawings. Could I have slide 18, please? In terms of design, the previous scheme was 2.5 storeys and contained a double gable features. So that was the actual approved scheme in 2019. Could I have slide 14, please? The revised scheme retains the double gables and general arrangement. The window arrangement is also similar to the previous scheme, and the use of materials is considered to be characteristic of the earlier properties along Oldfield Drive. Could I have slide 16, please? In relation to the trees on the site, the cultural impact assessment and methods statement indicated that some of the trees had to be removed to accommodate this application. The council's tree officer had some initial concerns. However, some of these trees to be removed were also agreed to be removed under the previous planning approval, and those other trees are considered to be low value in quality or in poor condition. Could I have slide 10, please? Whilst the proposal will be only slightly closer to number 3, the majority of the mass will sit alongside the side elevation of this property. Number 3 also contains a garage which is located between this site and that site and the proposed development. There's a ground floor habitable room window in the side elevation of number 3, and the first floor windows located in the western elevation of this proposal are located forward in the elevation to ensure there's no impact on the occupiers of that property, number 3, through overlooking and loss of privacy. Could I have slide 12, please? In assessing the impact of the proposal on number 295 Telegraph Road to the rear, the proposed building will sit half a metre closer than the previous consented development. This rear elevation contains a series of oriel windows and this together with the fact that the proposed development splays along from the shared boundary would ensure that this proposal will not have a significant greater impact over the previous approval. In relation to the other areas of concern raised by the objectors, the site's in a designated primary residential area and therefore considered to be in a sustainable location. There are no objections to this proposal from our highway engineers, and therefore there's no impact in terms of highway safety. The previous planning decision is a material consideration in the development in determining this application. So for these reasons, it's considered that the proposal complies with both national and local plan policy and is recommended for approval subject to the tax conditions and those additional conditions in the supplementary information. Thank you, Chair.
Andrew, I'd assume that the IT officer had brought you back in on Teams, but we'll just have to get used to all of this in-person nonsense again, won't we? Okay, we've moved on now, Andrew, to item number 6, and I'm going to ask the planning officer, with chagrin, no doubt, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair. Could I have slide number 9, please? This application has been referred to the Planning Committee as there are 41 objections to the proposal. These objections can be summarised as unsustainable development, impact on highway safety, detrimental to the character of the area and overlooking. The application site is located at the junction of Telegraph Road and Oldfield Drive. The site currently contains a detached dormer bungalow and the area is characterised by a mix of styles and types of dwellings. Could I have slide number 10, please? This application is for the erection of a 3-storey apartment block of 5 units following the demolition of the existing bungalow. Planning permission was granted on the site for a 2.5-storey apartment block of 5 units in 2019. This permission remains extant and can be developed over the next couple of years. In terms of changes to the footprint, these can be seen here. The pink dashed line denotes the approximate footprint of the previous approval and the dark line the current proposal. The changes briefly comprise of an increase in the dimension of the main footprint of the building from 15.2 metres to 18.2 metres in width and an increase in the ridge height from 8.7 metres to 9.3 metres. A proposed garage has also been removed from the scheme. Could I have slide 18, please? In terms of design, the previous scheme was 2.5 storeys and contained double gables similar to this proposal. And have slide 14, please. The revised scheme retains the double gable and general arrangement. The window arrangements and use of materials is considered to be characteristic of the earlier proposals along Oldfield Drive. Could I have slide 16, please? In relation to the trees on the site, the arboricultural impact assessment and method statement indicated that some of the trees had to be removed to accommodate this application. The council's tree officer had some initial concerns. However, some of these trees, it was agreed to be removed under the previous planning approval, and those other trees to be removed are considered to be low visual quality or in poor condition. Could I have slide number 10, please? With regards to the amenity of surrounding occupiers, the proposal differs only slightly from the previous planning approval. Whilst the proposal will be slightly closer to number 3, the majority of the mass will be alongside that side elevation, and the property also contains a garage which is located between this property and the proposed development. There's a ground floor habitable room window in the side elevation of number 3, and the first floor windows located in the western elevation of this proposal are located forward at that elevation and this will ensure there's no impact on those occupiers through overlooking and loss of privacy. Could I have slide number 12, please? In assessing the impact of this proposal on number 295 Telegraph Road to the rear, the proposed building will sit approximately half a metre closer than the previous consented development. This rear elevation contains a series of oriel windows, and this, together with the fact that the proposed development displays away from the shared boundary wall, will ensure that this proposal will not have a significant greater impact over the previous approval. In relation to the other areas of concern, the site is in a designated primary residential area and therefore is considered to be a sustainable location. There are no objections to the proposal from our highway engineers in terms of highway safety. The previous planning permission is a material consideration in the determination of this application. For these reasons, the proposal is considered to comply with both national and local plan policy and is recommended for approval subject to the attached conditions and those in the supplementary information.
Okay, I'm not aware of an objector having asked to speak. Are you Louise? You're the agent. Would you like to address us? Yep, certainly. Okay, so you have 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when you have a minute left.
Right, thank you, Chair. Good evening. I'm Louise Burrow on behalf of Condy Lofthouse Architects. We are the agent for the application. As Joe's mentioned, this follows a previous application that was approved in 2019 by another architect. Condy Lofthouse were appointed by the applicant to appraise the scheme and prepare a new planning application to seek a number of amendments. These can be summarised as utilising high-quality materials, including sandstone banding courses, window heads, while in keeping with the neighbouring properties, improved landscaping proposal to soften the appearance of the scheme, reconfiguring the apartment layouts in line with nationally described space standards and building regulations Part M Category 2, accessible and adaptable dwellings, which is comparable to the previous lifetime home standard, concealing the lift overrun within the roofscape as opposed to protruding, which was the proposal in the previous application. We've angled projecting windows to the habitable rooms on the rear elevation to provide better aspect and a view east over Telegraph Road while not overlooking private amenity space in adjacent properties. As this is a prominent corner plot, one of the key improvements we wanted to make was to have more active frontage facing onto Telegraph Road. We've done this through the use of feature gables and projecting bays. This also allows habitable rooms to open directly out onto that private amenity area to the side and increases the width of the building slightly, but it was felt that this gave a stronger presence to Telegraph Road. In an effort to reduce the overall mass of the building, the lift overrun and one number apartment have been concealed within the roof space. The ridge height is still lower than the property opposite at the junction of Mere Lane and Telegraph Road and is tied to a topographical survey that's been submitted. In terms of appropriate development of the site, the private rear amenity space accounts for 36% of the total site area in line with policy HS4. And we believe that this proposal will enhance the gateway into Heswall, as the site has recently fallen into disrepair, particularly with regards to the boundary treatment and upkeep, and we seek to replace this with a high-quality residential scheme. Thank you.
Thanks for that. I'll just ask if any members of the committee have any questions or clarification for the speaker. Kathy.
There was just one actually. When you mentioned towards the end of your speech about the roof height being the same as one of the properties on Mere Lane, the bungalow opposite Mere Lane. So how is that? Is that the property you're referring to, that the roof height is higher?
On the immediate east of the site, on the opposite side of Telegraph Road, on the corner plot there, there's a ridge, well, just opposite, there's a ridge height there, which we've maintained below.
And is that set further back from Telegraph Road?
Slide number 9 up, please. All right. Is it 354? Yeah. Is that 354?
Okay. Louise, I beg your pardon, Harry.
Yeah, I'm glad we've been able to put forward the conditions for secure, lockable and covered cycle storage. I did note the plans say for at least 6 cycle spaces. Do you think you'd be able to put in a few more so it's more appropriate for the number of people who are, you know, envisaged to live in the property, say about 2 per flat?
We've been asked by the planning officer to show 1 per unit and 1 additional visitor space. The properties are oversized based on NDSS, so there is room within the buildings that they could have additional storage for them if they required.
Yeah, that's good to know. I didn't know that from the proposals.
Okay, thanks for that. Well done, Harry. Any other questions? No. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'll now open it to debate and discussion by the committee. Anybody? Kathy?
Yeah, there was a query that I've got with regard to amenity space. Joe, could you confirm that the amenity space in relation to the overall development, what it was on the existing or the previous application, and the change in the percentage of amenity space on the new application, and whether or not the reduction in the amenity space means that any planning guidelines on amenity space for flats, that this application doesn't meet that? Thanks, Jim.
Yes, thank you. The original scheme had approximately 418 square metres of amenity space, and this one has got 391 square metres of amenity space. So the reduction is 27 square metres, but it still meets the advice in the planning policy of retaining 30% of the area for outdoor amenity space.
Got a few more things that I'd like to make comment on. The ward councillor can't be here tonight. The other one. The site of the proposed building is situated on a prominent position at the gateway to Heswall from the adjoining green belt and area of special landscape value. And whereas the existing bungalow and that on the corner of Mere Lane and Telegraph Road form a transition from the open countryside, I think this building would impose itself, and by reason of its scale, height and design, it would not fit comfortably with its immediate neighbours on Oldfield Drive or Telegraph Road. I accept that the approval has already been granted for an apartment building. However, the revised plans show a significant increase in mass from that originally approved, with the height, as we have heard in Joe's presentation, increasing from 8.7 to 9.3 metres, and the width from 15.2 to 18.1. And I feel that this attempt to increase the scale and density of development on the site will be harmful to the character of the local area and to the approaches to Heswall. Furthermore, the location of this development at the far boundary of the town, away from local facilities, has required that parking provision to be pushed to the maximum, with 11 parking spaces in total provided, with 2 of these enlarged to provide disabled parking facilities. This amount of parking has reduced the recreational amenity space for future occupants. The increased building footprint in this new application has reduced this recreational space even more, and the site is far removed from any other alternative public recreation spaces, and hence the increased footprint of the building will have an adverse impact on the amenity of the future occupants. The amended plans present an overdevelopment of a small and highly visible site, and in this regard, criterion 1 and 2 of the saved policy HS4 of the Unitary Development Plan require proposals to be of a scale which relate well to surrounding property, and in particular with regard to existing densities and form of development, and the proposal not resulting in a detrimental change to the character of the area. I do have words for refusal if nobody else is minded to speak.
Okay,
Chair.
I'll take that under advisement, and I'll come back to you
Yeah.
to put that those words in a moment. I'll just see if there's any other questions or comments. Harry.
Yeah, the application mentions the loss and replacement of trees. Do we have any idea of the number of trees that will be lost and why it is considered that the site is not able to support large mature trees, considering from my view that the communal garden seems rather substantial in size?
Thank you. Thank you. There isn't a landscaping scheme. There is a condition requiring the submission of a landscaping scheme, but the number of trees to be removed don't differ than over there were no more trees to be removed than the previous application allowed. So I think the planning office has gone the fact that there's been a previous approval, the same number of trees, but there's a landscaping scheme condition, so we will require new trees to be planted.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult to, we've had this debate before, but it's quite difficult to create an argument when you haven't seen the reasons for refusal. But I will give my observations for the benefit of the committee. I went on the site. I think you look at the plan, it is a huge site. The fact that there is a bungalow there now, it's a very large bungalow covering quite a space. I quite resonate with something the applicant said and other plots in the area. This is a corner plot as you sort of leave the green belt and enter what is I think gateway was the word used. So I actually think in terms of design and statement, a larger property probably would fit the bill. The fact that there's a bungalow there now is irrelevant. And I think the design has been done in such a sympathetic way to try and accommodate everybody. I really take quite difficult to sometimes we have these arguments about amenity space and dwellings. This is going to be a very attractive place for anybody to live. It's got its own recreational space built into it, but directly opposite is acres and acres of the green belt. I mean, if you're worrying about recreational space, there's quite a lot available to that property. So if we are genuinely talking about a level of intensification to compensate for building on the greenbelt, which is not primarily a material concern, but if you think that this plot is big enough, it's capable of being built without overlooking, and there may be some arguments about design, but I think the developer has been quite innovative in the terms where they've gone opaque on one side of the sort of triangular structure and non-opaque on the other side. I think there's been a genuine attempt to please everybody. They meet the car parking standards. We've let lots of applications go through that don't meet the car parking standards. Had we not met the car parking standards, people would have said the cars will be parked on the main road and cause problems. So I think there's been a genuine attempt to improve on the previous application. And I think on balance, the officers will have had to weigh up whether the previous application has such weight, which is a material consideration, has such weight that this is so different and so different in as much as it causes harm to say we could refuse it. And I don't think we could, given the fact that the principle of apartments on that site has been established by a previous application. I understand Kath defending that area. It's a very pleasant road. It has fell into quite disrepair, actually. It's not very attractive to look at from the outside at the moment. Now that people call that quaint, some people call it run down. My view is that this will be an improvement. It will be providing valuable housing, and I think it's an application at the moment worthy of support because I've not heard the reasons for refusal.
Oh, sorry, it was just that twitch or so. Not to worry. Kath, do you want to put something before us then, and maybe we can get our teeth into that?
My motion to refuse application APP 21002291 Oldfield Drive, Heswall, Wirral, on the following grounds. The proposed development, due to its increase in width, height and scale, is considered to have a detrimental impact on the character of the surrounding area and is therefore contrary to criterion 1 and 2 of Saved Policy HS4 of the Unitary Development Plan and paragraph 131 of the National Policy Planning Framework.
Do you have that in writing? Because I can see the solicitor just trying to. Okay, so maybe. Okay, so I think, shall I check if that's seconded first? Probably that would be the best thing. Is there a seconder for that? Okay, Bruce Berry seconded it. So we're going with character due to mass. I mean, my own observation really on that is that, as has been suggested, it's it already enjoys planning permission for a 2.5 storey block, and the increase in height that was put to us works out at 0.6 of a metre higher. So I guess the determination members will have to make is whether 0.6 higher is a harmful increase in mass compared to what could go there tomorrow, if you like. Am I right in thinking that the extension down, the increase left and right, if you like, the 3 metre increase, just 2.9 metre, that's at ground floor level?
It's across the bulk of the building. There's a single-storey element that's not included in the main.
Right.
Yes.
And that is that included in the 3.9 in the 2.9 metre, the ground floor? Okay, that's fine. I think my further observation would be, certainly, and in terms of trees, that the site is actually well shielded from Telegraph Road by the council's own trees, by the highway trees on the verge, which in a sense makes it less harmful. The trees have to be removed on that boundary because we maintain trees there anyway. The same is true of the other side of the road where the other larger building is. So it strikes me that it isn't overly harmful to views in from the green belt into this gateway. They're my observations on it. So yes.
Chair, although I think you've summed it up quite well, but just looking at the reasons, and just so members are clear on what they're voting for here, so the proposed sort of reason for refusal is about the increase in width, height and scale. So that's not over the bungalow, that's over the approved scheme, because the approved scheme can actually be built. So the issue that members are looking at is whether the increase in width, height and scale is considered to be so detrimental on this plot to warrant refusal. And what might help members here is if we can put the slide up that showed the footprint, which I think is about 1 or 2 slides on from here. So I don't have the number.
Number 10, please.
That one. So if members are looking at that, the purple line is the approved scheme, and then the darker line is the proposed scheme. And as you see on this side, there's a little rectangular shape which is a single-storey extension. That gives the additional width from most of the width from the 15 to the 18 metres, as it were. That gives you an indication, I think, as to the change in footprint. So what members have been asked to look at is whether that's so significant to warrant refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for clarifying those things. So there we have it. Whether that's sufficient increase in height and width.
Joanne's just correcting me so that. Do you want to explain? Actually, just so members are clear. Wouldn't want to mislead members in any way.
Thank you. The increase in width is the main bulk of the building. The single-storey extension is excluded from that 3 metres.
And the single-storey extension pushes towards the garage. Yes. So that's also important. Okay, so Andrew.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Could I just check the Greenbelt ruling? Am I right in thinking that it's not just the view into the Greenbelt, it's the view out of the Greenbelt? and the green belt will be the fields and what's known locally as the dungeons area. And the road isn't the green belt, technically, which is where the view is. Am I right in thinking that, or am I wrong?
No, you're right, but the actual site is in a designated primary residential area, not in the green belt. And I think you thinking about views in and out of a conservation area rather than the green belt. So it's just...
Is that all right, Andrew? That's a nice try. It's got to be said, but I think we would really push if open views out of the green belt was going to make it into the policy. But nice try nonetheless. Any other comments, or are we ready to vote? Okay, the solicitor's asking me to read it again. So we have in front of us a motion to refuse on the following grounds. The proposed development, due to its increase in width, height and scale, is considered to have a detrimental impact on the character of the surrounding area and is therefore contrary to criteria 1 and 2 of SAVE Policy HS4 of the Unitary Development Plan and paragraph 131 of the National Planning Policy Framework. Okay, so prepare to vote. Voting will be for and against the motion to approve. I beg your pardon. For and rubbish at this. For or against a motion to refuse. Can I see those in favour of refusal, please? Can I see those against refusal?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay, that's lost by 7 votes to 4. That being the case, then I'll move approval, and in doing so, just refer members to the addendum with the 2 extra conditions on the cycle storage and waste facilities. Is there a seconder to approval?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thanks for that. Ready to vote? Yeah, okay, so voting will be for or against the motion to approve. Can I see those in favour of approval, please? And those against? Okay, thanks for that. That application is approved, 7 votes to 4. Thank you very much. And we now move then to agenda item 7, which is in the name of the solicitor. And I'll just ask the board solicitor to introduce his report briefly.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is seeking effectively nominations of nominations to the subcommittee and the determination of the size of the strategic applications subcommittee. As members will note, the committee established amended terms of reference effectively on the 15th of October 2020, and that is set out at 3.1 of the report, at subparagraphs 1 to 5. I won't repeat, I won't read out all of that, but effectively it's all large, significant applications that will be determined by the Strategic Applications Subcommittee. The committee is requested to agree the size of the subcommittee, and the various options are set out at 5.3 of the report. So, and in terms of the recommendations, you're being asked to note the terms of reference of the Strategic Applications Subcommittee, determine the size of the subcommittee, and the options are for between 6 and 9 members, and then effectively, if the proposal is approved, or the recommendation is approved, asking for the monitoring officer to be authorised as proper officer to carry out the wishes of group leaders and allocating members to the subcommittee. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so hopefully the usual channels have prevailed on this, and we can just move forward with this. So the first recommendation is to note the terms of reference. So I'll certainly move that. In terms of the size, I would move that the committee be established in the size of 7. That would be a ratio of 3:2:1:1. And in terms of number 3, we'll move the recommendation as stands, but I think nominations have already been forwarded. So I will move those recommendations with the size of the committee being 7. Is that seconded? You're saying that. Thank you, Kath. Any debate? Are we comfortable? No, thank you. So vote, is that agreed? Should we just take that as agreed? Thank you very much. So that is agreed. And that concludes our first in-person meeting. Councillor Frost.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can I just get an understanding of versus other committees of why planning tonight has been a maskless committee versus others? And can I make a request that for the next planning committee, as per the guidance, we do wear our masks indoors?
I think it's an issue of guidance. I mean, we are separated. I mean, in work, we tend to only need to wear our masks while we're moving around. And we can't speak through, I couldn't hear Councillor Johnson at the beginning when she began. But I'll take further advice.
You heard me speak just then, Chair.
Honestly, I didn't hear that part. I heard what you said earlier, but I couldn't hear your retort to me. But,
Councillor Frost is asking if we can seek the guidance again. Other committees that I've attended this week, the masks have been worn except when people are speaking. So if we could just get some clarity on the guidance, because we are on public show as well, so we've got to...
Chair, sorry to interject here. Other committees have met this week here and they haven't worn masks when they've been sat down debating. And some committees, I think, will go on for hours, and to sit with a mask on for hours, I mean, if you can do that, that's fine. I don't think I could sit for hours with a mask on.
I don't think I could either. And I think that the key...
With all due respect, sir, Chair, you could say that to the NHS staff that have to work them day in, day out.
Can I just say, as you say, we'll check the guidance, but I think the key word there is also guidance, Councillor. So I'll certainly take that as an item of any other business that's been put to me. But sooner members were as comfortable as they could be, and whilst we're also, observing social distancing, which is why we're in the larger room. I think I'd quite like to bring it to a close, but Steve, did you want to?
No, if we seek the guidance, my members will follow whatever the best guidance is, safest guidance. So.
Okay, thanks for that. In which case we will declare the meeting